The stars had always been a source of wonder for humanity. They had inspired stories, guided explorers, and represented the infinite possibilities of the cosmos. For Captain Elias Vren, however, they had become a constant reminder of loss, an endless void that mirrored the ache in his chest. He sat in the dimly lit bridge of the Vanguard's Wrath, his flagship, staring at the holographic map of the sector. It pulsed faintly, marking the location of their target, a Zyrrk stronghold hidden in the nebula of Karsis Vale. This was no ordinary mission. It was the culmination of years of pain, planning, and preparation. "Captain," came a voice, breaking the silence. It was Lieutenant Harper, his second in command. "The crew is ready. We're awaiting your orders." Elias turned his gaze toward her. Harper was young, her face still carrying traces of the optimism that had long since drained from Elias's own. Yet even she bore the scars of Epsilon Prime. Everyone aboard the Wrath did. This mission wasn't just a duty, it was personal. Each face on the ship, each set of determined eyes, spoke of stories woven with tragedy, vengeance, and the will to make their oppressors pay. "Good," Elias said, his voice steady despite the storm within him. "Tell them to prepare for hyperspace. This ends today." The memory of Epsilon Prime was seared into Elias's mind. It had been humanity's jewel among the stars, a flourishing colony that showcased the best of what Earth could offer. Families walked its bustling streets under the light of twin suns. Children played in open fields, and every corner of the settlement hummed with the promise of a brighter future. It was the kind of place that made you believe in the goodness of life, until life itself turned cruel. That promise had been shattered in an instant. The Zyrrk raiders descended without warning. Their ships tore through the colony's defenses like paper, raining fire and destruction. The Zyrrk had always been ruthless, their empire built on the spoils of weaker civilizations. They had no need for diplomacy, no regard for coexistence. Epsilon Prime, for all its beauty and vibrancy, was simply another target. Elias had been off-world at the time, overseeing a supply run. By the time he and his crew arrived, it was too late. The cities were in ruins, the fields scorched black. He found his brother among the dead, clutching the charred remains of a photograph of their family. A small, simple keepsake turned into a final testament to a life snuffed out too soon. Elias had begged the Galactic Council for justice. He stood before them, a lone human among the towering alien delegates, pleading for action against the Zyrrk. The council chamber was a grand amphitheater of polished stone and shimmering light, a monument to diplomacy that now felt hollow. The delegates watched him with varying degrees of disinterest, their alien features betraying nothing but apathy. Elias's voice cracked as he recounted the horrors, his words carrying the raw weight of a man broken yet unyielding. The council had dismissed his cries, labeling the attack an unfortunate casualty of interstellar politics. To them, humanity was insignificant, a fledgling species that didn't warrant risking intergalactic stability. Their indifference was a second betrayal. Elias refused to let Epsilon Prime become a footnote in galactic history. He and his crew transformed the Vanguard's Wrath from a modest exploration vessel into a weapon of war. They scavenged what they could, upgrading its weapons, reinforcing its hull, and programming advanced AI to outmaneuver larger fleets. Every bolt tightened and circuit soldered was driven by the memory of what they had lost. The ship became more than a vessel. It became their sword and shield, their declaration that humanity would not be forgotten. The crew shared his resolve. Lieutenant Harper, whose parents had perished in the attack, worked tirelessly to optimize the ship's energy systems. Dr. Anya Patel, the ship's medic, repurposed medical drones for combat, ensuring they could save lives and take them if necessary. Even Marcus Wrench Carter, the gruff engineer, poured his grief into making the Wrath faster and deadlier than anything the Zyrrk could anticipate. Each member of the crew carried their own pain, their own reasons for fighting. Together, they were a tapestry of human resilience, bound by a singular purpose. Their target was the Zyrrk stronghold that intelligence reports had identified as the staging ground for the attack on Epsilon Prime. It was heavily fortified, protected by an armada of warships and a planetary shield. A suicide mission, some might call it. But for Elias and his crew, it was justice. The kind of justice that couldn't be handed down in courts or negotiated in treaties. This was retribution forged in fire. The Vanguard's wrath exited hyperspace with a thunderous crack, its sleek frame slicing through the dense clouds of Karsis Vale. Before them lay the Zyrrk stronghold, its jagged towers gleaming ominously against the nebula's crimson hues. Alarm klaxons blared from the enemy fleet as dozens of warships swarmed to intercept the human vessel. "Shields up!" Elias barked, gripping the armrests of his chair. "Harper, target the lead cruiser. Wrench, divert all non-essential power to the weapons." The crew moved in perfect synchronization, their years of training and shared purpose evident in every action. The Wrath shuddered as enemy fire rained down upon it, but its reinforced shields held firm. Harper's fingers danced across the console, sending precise volleys of plasma bursts that tore through the enemy formation. Every shot was a calculated strike, every maneuver a statement. Humanity would not bow. "They're regrouping," Harper reported, her voice calm despite the chaos. "Trying to flank us." "Let them," Elias replied. "They think we're predictable. Let's show them how wrong they are." With a flick of a switch, Elias activated the ship's experimental cloaking device. The Wrath vanished from sight, leaving the Zyrrk fleet disoriented. In a daring maneuver, they reappeared behind the enemy lines, unleashing a barrage of missiles that crippled the flagship. The explosion lit up the nebula, a brilliant burst of fire and debris that seemed to echo the cries of the fallen from Epsilon Prime. Despite their success in the space battle, Elias knew the mission wouldn't be complete until the Zyrrk command structure was dismantled. He led a small team to infiltrate the stronghold's surface, their objective clear: eliminate the Zyrrk warlord who had orchestrated the attack on Epsilon Prime. The stronghold loomed before them, a fortress of alien architecture that exuded menace. Its corridors were a maze of cold metal and hostile forces. The team moved with precision, their weapons silencing enemies before alarms could be raised. Each step closer to the warlord's chamber brought a surge of adrenaline and the weight of their mission. When they finally breached the chamber, the Zyrrk warlord stood waiting, flanked by heavily armed guards. His reptilian features twisted into a sneer as he regarded the intruders. His voice, a guttural snarl, carried both amusement and contempt. "You're persistent, human," the warlord hissed, "but persistence won't save you." Elias stepped forward, his weapon steady. "I'm not here to be saved. I'm here to end you." The battle was brutal. The warlord's guards fought ferociously, their loyalty unwavering. But Elias and his team's resolve proved stronger. Years of preparation, countless nights spent honing their skills, and the collective grief of a species culminated in this moment. In the end, it was Elias who delivered the final blow, his blade piercing the warlord's chest. The Zyrrk leader's dying words were a chilling warning. "You think this will change anything? Humanity's defiance has been noted. Others are watching. The Vanguard's wrath returned to human space, battered but victorious. The crew's faces were a mixture of exhaustion and pride as they disembarked, their mission a testament to humanity's resilience. They had struck a blow not just for themselves, but for every human who had ever been overlooked, dismissed, or underestimated. Elias stood on the bridge one last time, staring out at the stars. The void no longer felt empty. It was filled with the echoes of those they had fought for, and the promise of a future worth protecting. His voice, steady and resolute, carried the weight of their journey. "We didn't just avenge Epsilon Prime," Elias said. "We proved that humanity isn't to be dismissed." The silence in the aftermath of the battle felt both deafening and suffocating. The Vanguard's wrath, though battered, still held a sense of pride in its strength. It had survived the enemy onslaught, and more importantly, the crew had survived. They had accomplished what so many thought impossible. And yet, no one could escape the heavy toll that victory had exacted. As the wrath made its way back to human space, Elias couldn't help but think of the faces of his crew. They had all carried their burdens, their griefs, and their losses into the mission. They had fought not just for justice, but for closure, something that would never truly come. The Zyrrk had been defeated, but the scars of war ran deep, and for many of them, those scars would never heal.